Could you please enlighten us on the discussion you had with Lynn and Mike Maloney at the end of dinner? Oh boy. That was one of my favorite conversations I have ever had. Two of my favorite people. I don't know. There's no way I could get into the details of what we were talking about because I would need a whiteboard and I would lose 99% of the people on this live stream right now. But oh boy, how can I summarize it? Basically, we were trying to figure out the aggregate impact on M2 money supply if a bank creates a mortgage and then the Fed buys the mortgage. Now, you may say, oh, George, well, that's easy because the Fed's just buying it from the bank. So they create M2 and then the Fed buys it from the bank. There's no impact on M2. So you just however many currency units were created by creating the however many currency units were created by lending them into existence to begin with the mortgage, that would be the overall net impact on M2. But it gets very, very complicated because what if that bank sells the loan? Maybe they sell it to another bank. Okay, great. Now we're not impacting M2, but what if they sell it to an entity in the private sector? And then what if the Fed, in order to buy that, they have to go through the primary dealer? Okay, is the primary dealer paying for that mortgage with M2 or are they paying with it out of base money? Depends. If it's a primary dealer that's under the umbrella of one of the big banks, then most likely bank reserves. But they wouldn't have to exclusively go through one of those entities. So say it goes from the balance sheet of a bank onto the balance sheet of a primary dealer that isn't under the bank that's actually using M2, and then it's going back to the Fed. Okay, but what if it goes to Fannie and Freddie? And then what if Fannie and Freddie packages that and then sells it to an investment firm on Wall Street? Okay, well, is Fannie and Freddie using M2? Are they using bank reserves? You see where I'm going with this? So what happens is you can have, if it's just two transactions, it's super simple. Well, it's super simple for people like Mike and Lynn and people who have put a lot of thought into it. Like you might put me in that category as well. But once you start this daisy chain of like 10 different variables, and each variable could be an entity that is using reserves or using M2. And based on that variable in the daisy chain, the outcome 10 steps later is different. You've got to think, and that is, to say that is wildly complex is a dramatic understatement. And I had a position on how that works, and I was doing my very best to explain it to Mike, and I was using Lynn as an example of the primary dealer. I would say, okay, Mike, so you're the bank that institutes the loan. Lynn is the primary dealer. I'm the Fed, and we were going around and around and around and around, trying to all get on the same page as to what the outcome would be. But we had like 10 different variables. So we're like, okay, if this happens and that happens and this happens and that happens and this happens and that happens, then what the blah, 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 blah. So like I said, I can't really totally explain it, or I'd need a whiteboard, but it was one of the funnest conversations I have ever had. It was just super, super cool.